Tene tatanda ngarange tangbo chenamba gangala tahidili chuchuta tene tate jeso tatanda ngaranso chutingo undse na chuni partuke sumba pardola namba yep nane tene sumba chuni partuke pardo hipe kaprela tene chuni pardo te ya tak kasing kapsu kari hubarese na chitang chutongchi tongni imbag no hartang rabote tongni ta choja chimbo ta dewarhi bingu mo te ye hisena yanda ta te chartang te chitang tongni ngoni chartang te hubarela tene te ya tangaranso no hi go on de se na cerdo number hi ba chu je number hiba chu ji ge zawa de kanderese na kuigi number hiba sinkin de kandel sege yorese na ngaranzo ta number hiba yenda ge konso mato ba jitang ge tu jendo ngaranzo ro nai do nai sa nai nye nai salhin ripi ge cha zam hi zani manga ba la tene tate nege yorela te kunhi number hiba tene ta kunhi number hiba ti ngo de kande chi yorese na ngo rangin chi tomba tene ngo rangin chi salwa salton sondun ju pa chi nelu te ta ye nelu on se na tende yore te yinaya kunhi ti ngo te salwa te harayon kapsala teni salwate kharwala teni tongchate ngui mazin bache tongchate ngui mazin bache ne teni trubati yungi yore truba sedu tendam chuni ga ondisi na trubari kunzo nungsul ga ondisi na koran salware koran salne chasang nongwaji kharge yore mato te marikba no tomewe nombala yomare trul sedu teni salvo je kharge yore la salvo je kharwala teni tela teni ti salcha tela tombo ngoma hiba je teni te jinji teni ngame bala ngaran zambe nyemo be ye te chang tain ding se tati nyemo be ye tela rangin ke dot zambe ke namba ngaran so tena yonda madena yonda nganzin tamshige wate takwa ye bala teni nyemo be ye te chang nyemo be ye tang kunhi number hiba ni tela tembe number hiba sungi yorela tati number hiba chu tela matembe number hiba sungi yore tati tembe number hiba no ne teni matemba njuhi number chu sege yorela chu de charong tela teni ta make number hiba make ombola teni make number hibi zutong now ombolatin now number hibi ke datu nai ombolatin nai number hibi ke tsor teni je ombolatin je number hibi ro nyon luje ombolatin ta te luje number hibi rizanyon te ta te la go ngai number hiba ka sete ke number ta bu je ta teni te tomi ke number ta tsema ga ondesena toji to tomi number ni ke no tomi ke number se teni tate koran hyar zam thong zam de mato tela yakbor zambata dubor zambe namto hira yomarela yakbor zambe number to ba to dubor zambe number to ba te ta number to ba toji se ge yore toji se du ye toji se du teni ye toji tige teni nguni ge no zamai ba salbor nong ge yomari ye la tenki tsoji hirwari make number hibi je suji ne zut tenki tsoji number la hyane teni tela number topa mambo ya bota dubu ge nongdo mambo je te yenda nawe number hibi je suji ne teni tate drar zangi ge nongdo teni trazangi ge nongdo la so pata tende number topa ji patela tupa hiti number hiba se ta te dambe ge number hiba chu chou yorela chu chou te tambo ken yige teni chuji yenji ne lu tongcha te ngwe ma sing ba che teni tela teni marik petrol tela teni dadan zai tela teni number hiba chu chou Teni Jovati Soni, Tan Jitin Digin on the Chasanji Hargior. Teni Tatella, Jitin Digin on the Chasanji Harium de Tella, Teni Takandiji Jungeresena, Teni Tatella, Teni Takarlamto, Malam Jacapsala, Teni Rimbagintala, Susu Chorwanda Boti, Tambo Gong number hipate, Taki number hipamondo, 10. Gong I number hipate, Teni Niemobi, Gong number hipata, each number hipate, Tenikan number hipala, 10. Teni Karlam Jacapsala, Niemobi, the number hipala, 10. Teni Tati Nalam Jacapsala, Kimaripe Chatea, Ransar Temni, Tatu Sarchanabo, the Singani, Teni Tati Chuchi Yanking Mondo, Negiorella, Tatella Ye Salse, Cassing Hubati, the Tiquarel, Ye Salse Nayanda, they were keeping Bos Nayanda, Tati Captain Hargiore, Hargiore, te Yenaya, Teni Tatanda. Tenete Naranzoli ye demani ye nelo de tan truchati te sur doyung kaptana Sharium riore truchati doyung castle Sharium riore de yenaya tenitela comcha mena tating ontola netugio marela teacher na teni tati tanda ye wesang simbersipi certola teni tankandi gogresena tatanda jene partol nepe kaptana Tene Nyamni Yapoje Yaba Nyamni Yapu Yapa Tea Te Motella Tene So Zum Lam Zum Sharva Maimba Tene Hinig Tingen Zanatine Tencha Yaba Salcha Yaba Tatende Jig Gomte Kalche.
Good morning to you all. We are currently concerned with the third of the 4 intervals, that is to say, the interval of Dharmata. And yesterday I explained how at the beginning of the interval of Dharmata, the emptiness of all things, of all dharmas, appears to the person who has just died. What appears at that time is the ground. You can call it emptiness, you can call it Buddha nature, you can call it Mahamudra. Essentially, it is what is called the ground wisdom. Now, what actually has happened to cause this to appear? As we have discussed, our minds consist of 8 consciousnesses, 8 types of consciousness. The root of all of these is the 8th, which is called the all-basis consciousness. The all-basis consciousness is continuous. It is functioning whether you are walking or sitting, whether you are talking or eating, in fact, whether you are awake or asleep. The all-basis consciousness is that mere cognitive lucidity, that mere lucid awareness that is not comprised by the functions of the other 7 consciousnesses, but that underlies them. Now, the nature of the all-basis consciousness is at the same time empty and lucidity. It is emptiness and it is lucidity. So it's often referred to as the unity of emptiness and lucidity. The problem is that when the lucidity of the all-basis consciousness arises, we don't recognize the emptiness. And that is the start of bewilderment. When, because of the intensity of the all-basis's lucidity, we fail to recognize its emptiness. Now, bewilderment is, in a sense, an active state, because the bewilderment is itself a function of that lucidity. Admittedly, an aberrant function, it is nevertheless a function of that lucidity itself. So bewilderment is not mere unconsciousness. It is a type of lucid function. The first moment of bewilderment is the absence of recognition. The absence, in the midst of the lucidity, the absence of recognition of the emptiness. The next moment is when, in the absence of that recognition, we mistake that which is not I, that which is not a self, to be I, to be the self. That second stage of bewilderment is the arising of the seventh consciousness, the consciousness which is mental affliction, or the afflicted mental consciousness. The afflicted mental consciousness is that underlying apprehension of a self that is, like the all-basis, continuous. Whether we are consciously thinking about the self or not, there is an always present fixated apprehension of the self, and that is the seventh consciousness. So these two consciousnesses, the all-basis consciousness and the afflicted mental consciousness, are called stable consciousnesses or unfluctuating consciousnesses because they function continuously. The six consciousnesses that arise from these, however, are called fluctuating consciousnesses or unstable consciousnesses because they arise and cease in response to contact with their individual or respective objects. The first five of these are the sense consciousnesses. The eye consciousness, in reliance upon the eye faculty, experiences visible forms. The ear consciousness, in reliance upon the ear faculty, experiences audible sounds. The nose consciousness, in reliance upon the nose faculty, experiences smells. The tongue consciousness, in reliance upon the tongue faculty, experiences tastes. And the body consciousness, in reliance upon the body faculty, experiences tactile sensations. These five sense consciousnesses, while they are fluctuating, are at the same time utterly non-conceptual. They do not and cannot in any way think or appraise their objects. They merely see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, respectively. They cannot and do not think about their objects, such as recognizing them as one thing or another, or thinking of them as good or bad, and so on. The sixth fluctuating consciousness, the mental consciousness, does not directly see the objects of the senses. What it experiences is an abstraction or a generalized image that it produces based upon the sense impression received by one of the sense consciousnesses. So the sixth consciousness will generate a generalized image of, for example, what the eye consciousness has seen, and so forth. In addition to that, the sixth consciousness functions conceptually to think about these generalized images, think of them as one thing or another, think of them as good or bad, and so on. Now, all six of these consciousnesses result from the all-basis consciousness's absence of recognition of its own emptiness. To start with, the mind does not recognize its own emptiness, overpowered by its own lucidity. And then it misapprehends itself as a self, which is the beginning of the seventh consciousness. And from that arise the six consciousnesses, and from them all of the appearances of this world. Now, what happens to these consciousnesses during death? The first consciousnesses to cease functioning during the dying process are the five sense consciousnesses. As the sense faculties cease their functioning, the consciousnesses that rely upon them stop arising. And then during the inner dissolution, white appearance, red increase, and black attainment, the other consciousnesses gradually become dormant as well. After the five sense consciousnesses have dissolved back into the all-basis consciousness, the sixth consciousness, the mental consciousness, dissolves into it. During the first of the three stages of the appearance, increase, and attainment, during the white appearance, the seventh consciousness, the afflicted mental consciousness, dissolves back into the all basis. And at the end of the third of these stages, at the end of black attainment, the all basis in its ignorant aspect, the all basis consciousness as a state of ignorance, becomes briefly non-functional. It is not purified. What happens is there occurs a gap in its functioning. And this gap, where none of the eight consciousnesses as bewildered functions are functioning, allows for the appearance of the ground luminosity, the ground clear light. So the ground clear light appears at that moment, which is the first moment of the Bardo of Dharmata, because the consciousnesses are temporarily in abeyance. But although they are temporarily dormant, they have not been eradicated. So if the ground clear light is not recognized, all of the bewilderment will gradually re-arise. And this is why we need so much to practice in this life during this interval between birth and death. And practice here, familiarization with the ground clear light, has to be much more than a mere glimpse of it through direct introduction. The glimpse of the ground clear light that students have through direct introduction is not sufficient in order to produce recognition at the time of death. This recognition must be consciously cultivated through the student's own effort in the practice of tranquility and insight, which must become stable.
Dene ta tela yang remji tembe kapsula temrem jitang number go ndabu ji sharge yore la dene ta te yang temrem trukti kasin dene chekpatu kapla jongre sachola tamba jai chomela tamba ni dene ta di jisula me long la tamba som dene long nong hi la tamba ye nong hi nong kha la tamba nga dene ta di nga de jehe tanda cheke partu ka kapla chungare la cheke partu ka tama de la tene tanda tama de la tene namkha wesa la tamba singiti di kap tena la ta tanda ye nelu de charni tene di ge cheke pardo de zo ne tene ta chuni partu ka ngo chuni chuni ka noa de chari yung di kap tena la temrem chukwa namkha wesa la tam sungi yore la ta di ge ripa di chasang do ni chuni ge noa de char ge yore tene chuni ge noa de ta ngoi sai na 다 디갑드나라 띵엔zen cheparchenche jilla chene teni de tingenzhen tele yar tang kapsula teni ngara jewa zambo lento bi nubatan temate yungi yore la teni de tabu ngu mazin na ya tak de tabu ngu mazin na teni yeni ya tunthong da boje shargi yore la teni di ge namka wesala temba da temdem tupare 다 농가 외살 템비기 요 드나 라틴이 농가 간샤르게 요레세나 외살 순주 라틴 바생기데 템름 덤바티 용게 요레라 드네 외살 순주 라틴 바티 템름데 샤르 갑솔라 가리 용게데세나 통통 투 라조데 샤르게 요레 통통 투 라조 젠동 차루 선신 나조 다텔라 넘바 데치 만다와 드네 다웨 세르섬 넘바다보데 샤르게 요레 다 가세잉 알아서 다지 그 갑슬라 데네 다 휴바yen도 다지 그 갑슬라 데네 레베난도 예바데 두징아치 자지데 야르 룰레 달리용도 데네 통통투 그 넘반다보 아 데네 다데 지당그 바르도 투돌 그 나네 당보 성나 예외게 Bardo de Tangbo Unji Yabajayda, True Bardo de Jima Unji Yabandaboje, Song Yorella, Tandang Aranzo Bardo Tiginala, then True Bardo de Tangbo and Chara, then Heavy Bardo de Jiman Charwa, Daboji, Song Yore, Inayata de Koremangi Bandavo, Takoran Korem Kande, Shanaya, Tati Tanda, Timrim Dumba. Wesar sunju la tembeka sola teni DJ tambotu bardo char teni dige kapsula ta la tenzo teni Jeremy yabo juma inna la tenzo ngonche teni Jeremy yabo majuna ta tenzo la tenzo ngomenche ba teni perna ngone ge Jeremy yabo je majuna ya teni tanda ge je yalthang jarwa ta 그 꾼jarwa la sopalaya be tene guba chimbu yore di kaptana la ta tenhi gi jisena iram jala tenso ngusen yo panda yana thana jidwa meje wanda boda tene di kaptana la lanjarwa zom jijang hajang ge guba chimbu yore
The entire process of dissolution, which comprises both the interval of the time of death and the further dissolutions which occur in the interval of dharmata, is ninefold. 6 of these stages have occurred by the time you enter the interval of dharmata. And then the 6th is the border between these two. Then the 7th, 8th, and 9th occur within the Bardo of Dharmata itself. The 6 stages of dissolution, which we have already gone through, are the dissolution of earth into water, water into fire, fire into wind, wind into consciousness, and consciousness into space. Those 5, which are completed within the interval of the time of death. And then the 6th, which is the border between the interval of the time of death and the interval of dharmata, is called the dissolution of space into the clear light. The dissolution of space into the clear light refers to the appearance of dharmata, the appearance of the ground clear light or ground wisdom. If through familiarization during the preceding life, the person who has died recognizes the dharmata, then they can rest in it in a state of meditative absorption. And when they thereafter arise from that meditative absorption, they will be able to choose a good rebirth. If we do not recognize the dharmata or the ground clear light, then bewildered appearances will gradually arise. Now the 7th dissolution, what normally or usually ensues upon the dissolution of space into the clear light is called the dissolution of the clear light into unity. And what happens at the time of this seventh dissolution is that the wrathful deities appear. They appear in their various modes of appearance with their costumes and scepters and colors and so forth. They appear in the midst of very loud sounds, brilliant lights, and piercing rays of multicolored light. And they appear, as has been said, because they have emerged from your body upon the separation of mind and body at death. Now you will note that the Great Liberation Through Hearing in the Bardo says that the peaceful deities appear first and the wrathful deities appear afterward. Here, our text tells us that the wrathful deities appear first and the peaceful deities appear afterward. We can infer from this that the order may vary. The point, however, is that at this point in the Bardo, these deities start to appear. And according to the sequence of our text, during the dissolution of the clear light into unity, those who appear first are the wrathful ones. Now, if you have cultivated a generation stage practice focused on the wrathful deities, you will be able to recognize them when they appear, which is a good thing. If you have not familiarized yourselves with these deities in any way, you will not recognize them, you will be frightened of them, which is not a good thing. Even if you have not practiced the visualization of these deities, even if you have familiarized yourself with them by studying paintings of them or statues of them and so on, you may be able to recognize them. And even if you don't recognize them, you may be able to have enough of a habit of liking their appearance that you are not afraid of them, which is a very good thing.
Tene ta te jesala tu pardo de sharsa kasala tene hirazo rimba yendala charne tene je di kapsula tene je kipo ndabota njada we garangi tile tan titin garangi tene jalware nga sonchu sempa sema ala so pata tenso chargi yore la tene ta tejendo ta tetabu chargi yore tetabu charwe kapso tene tanda chitang ta mege somsula ta je yana tene tlatenzuge nazata jendong chaluta hiwatung truulazo tenzuge jendang chalu zetang tene tenzo je pek lusundabu je pepa la deshar yang shijandabu je ina yenda jishar yang na nangbege lusundabu je la deshar yang nangba mayingbe lusula yenda jishar men rohi sambatabu yore de kapkala yung sikere de ina te mare te karere se na korang ranging ke de tene pek lusul tang tamba yang mayingba tene namba sanji pa jaga ke lusul ki hin shuba yung mayingba ranging ye ni ngaranzu lula ye pa de tene ta tanda tongbu ne tangda po de lu ki zangkor ke nangda la tenzu ye pa tene te chilo la ten yung kaso la te xarge yore la te xarge ye pi junsen yang tene pe na zopa chimbo tögal gom ki tsoge ta jitang tögal yapo gom tögal tencha jing gom na tene te la tile xarge ye pa jay ta tene tile te yang tembo chong ne tene ta tanda zopa chimbo katik se ne wela tene gomba ta nakti se ne mumbala tene gomba ta tene gom ki yore la te gom du te la tene chay te la sracha ya boto boto tencha ya boto na tongbo tile tang titin xar tile tang titin ka na ne lai namba xar ki yore la Tinti lai number Herwati, Naransu Gomni Hawa Maimba, Rankin Luigi Nandu Yapatel, need number Latini, Tini, Tingus Hargi or Mus Haw Capsula, Tini he will have to Lazo Tinzus Hargi or Latinity, Kitang Chulu Hinda Vota, Tini you look behind the what in the Maimba. Ranking the Shargi or Lati Party Nekalaya, Tagaran, Shargi or.
According to our text, after the appearance of the wrathful deities, the peaceful deities start to appear. And this is explained as being a pleasant mode of appearance. The peaceful deities appear surrounded by rainbow light and spheres of multicolored light and smaller spheres of multicolored light. The peaceful deities include the 5 male and 5 female Buddhas, the 8 male and 8 female Bodhisattvas, and so forth. Now, with regard to the mode of appearance of the wrathful and peaceful deities in the Bardo, many people have thought that the description of how these deities appear is either culturally or religiously specific. Culturally specific in the sense that the colors and postures and appearances of these deities, as well as the clothing and jewelry that they wear and the scepters that they hold, that all of these things are based on a Tibetan cultural tradition, and that therefore foreigners, non-Tibetans, would not see these deities. They would see them as appearing differently. Other people say that it's not cultural, but it is based upon a belief system, so that Buddhists would see these deities looking like this, non-Buddhists would see other deities or deities appearing differently. Well, first of all, the appearance of these deities is certainly not a Tibetan cultural tradition. In fact, it is not even an Indian cultural tradition. Nor do they appear the way they appear because you expect them to or because you believe in them. Whether or not you believe in them, they're going to appear the way they appear, because they exist within the channels of your body. And they emerge from these channels at death. There is proof of this, proof of the consistent manner of appearance of the peaceful and wrathful deities. And this proof is gained from the practice of leapover within the Great Perfection tradition. In the practice of leapover, in reliance upon either the practice of light or the practice of darkness, the person who cultivates this practice properly and stably first experiences or sees drops or spheres of light and smaller drops or spheres of light. And then, as the meditation becomes more stable and more clear, within these drops of light, they actually see these peaceful and wrathful deities. Now, when you see these deities, you are not imagining them. You are seeing them. They are not an object of belief. Furthermore, they are not produced by the meditation technique. You are enabled to see them by the meditation technique, but they themselves are not produced by it. They are already present within your body. And because they appear consistently, as they are described in the texts, to practitioners of leapover, we can infer that they also appear consistently to beings in the Bardo or interval.
다 대답을 투 Bardo 당 해 Bardo her와텔라 템름게 나니 템름 덤바 다 회사 순주라 덤바 순기와라 데니 회사 순주라 덤바 디갑다나라 다 디게 농아된서 샤르 데니 다 대답을 정네 다 템름 제바텔라 순주 예히라 덤바 순기와래 Sunju Yehi la tempe capsula, Teni Ta Hive la Zoto, Tove la Zotonji, Rang la tempe no wanda which Yarne, Teni Ta Ti la, Teni Rang, Ningani, Teni Wet the position, Wet Tinkata, Carboton, Servoton, Marbo, Teni Tea, Jay, Wet the Rimbo, Double, Jay Yarne. Teni ta tero la ya teni rimbo te la ya teni tile mangbu gi jamba teni chargi ware la teni te la te muise na teni yehi yijur galam se yehi yijur juwalam teni te la we donk de chargi yo mare teni te la sawatu bi ta yehi ngai rongzu de la sawatu patingu so ma to pa yibichana te chage yo mares ta te jes la timrim gubate yehi lundu rinzen la tamba se teni ta te kapsala teni ti ge tainto teni we te duk da boje ga no yar ta te de ti ge teni rimbayindala chargi yo re
Kapo marpo tenga sepo.
lao
Shi doa.
yeta
Tene de tata te chimrem jepa zungju ishe la tempe kapsu tene de öze de rangi nyinga ne pa trowa tongre yana tsu
rang ningan padwa tong
pa trowa.
padwa
Nasa.
ta chitang rang le padwa yin bichina kanga rang le twa
Oh, nasa. The appearances of both the wrathful and peaceful deities make up the 7th of the 9 stages of dissolution, and which is called the dissolution of the clear light into unity. After that has occurred, the 8th dissolution occurs, which is called the dissolution of unity into wisdom. At this point, the deities that have appeared dissolve into you, dissolve into the being that is experiencing them. And then there emerge from your heart rays of brilliant light of 4 colors that shoot out from your heart to a great distance. The 4 colors are white, yellow, blue, and red. The 5th color, green, does not appear because these rays of light are the display of the 5 wisdoms. And as the person experiencing this has not achieved accomplishment, the 5th wisdom, the wisdom of accomplishment, and therefore the green light does not arise. But the other 4 do arise, and these rays or pathways of light are adorned with spheres and rings of light of their corresponding colors. After that, then the 9th dissolution occurs, which is called the dissolution of wisdom into spontaneous presence. Sometimes it's called the dissolution of wisdom into the Vidyadhara of spontaneous presence. During this 9th dissolution, you start to experience domes of light, somewhat like parasols above you. And these are of the same 4 colors as the preceding rays of light.
teni ta te tabu ta tanda sharni ta te la yang ngaran so nyamsal lembe kapsula ta yen rintung de khandi ji shargi yore se na ta te susu ge ta chitang ge tujun de la ina yen tung tung ji ma tu shargi yo mare la teni ta te la something ji ho se ge yo kasin nguma cha ji hu song la something ji ho se na tanda ngaran so che tingen la nyambar ga ka sar ka se ji ho tu ge yo na te la something ji ho se ge yo re la teni te nyamni ya po yo na teni something ji ho che ni ngai par che ri pa la ta te ta bu ne ge yo re ma to teni te ha chang ge yin ring bo ne ge yo ma re la teni ta ti nyambar yo tu na teni ri pa che zu ne ya ta ne che teni ta che Bardo ge chun hong da bo che da men jong wa teni je wa sang bo len ta ba teni yin sa re
Rikpa chitsune jone dene eche duk de zola tempa.
Yeah, well.
Dene santange sha chikne ngape barsana chemrem gupa yeshe londrut la tempa kona la seke warebe.
Di tanda chuni bardu ke temrem tanda sama.
Chemrem sumde. In practical terms, if you ask how long all of this lasts or how long all of this takes, for most people it's very brief, because again, it is measured in meditation days. A meditation day, as before, means the period of time for which the experiencing being can rest his or her mind in a state of even placement. So if the person has stable meditation, these dissolutions will last longer. If the person does not, they will be very brief. In general, the duration of the 3 dissolutions of the Bardo of Dharmata that we've just gone through can last anywhere from 1 to 5 meditation days. And if the person is able to rest in meditation during this, and also recognize the appearances as their own display, then their awareness will, during this 9th dissolution, the dissolution of wisdom into spontaneous presence, during this 9th dissolution, their awareness will emerge from the top of their head and dissolve into the lights of spontaneous presence, enabling them to avoid much of the bewilderment of the later parts of the interval and enabling them to take a good rebirth. I'm going to stop for there this morning. Since we did not have time for questions yesterday, you may ask questions now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Last year, you gave some instruction on the practice of light and darkness, and I'm wondering whether that's considered complementary to the Shicho practice that was introduced this year, or whether there's an explicit way of integrating it with that practice.
Kasong de tuga ge nangtri da muntri te song nani. Dene data de dalo sompa ge shutro dakche de da de nangtri muntri ge nyam de so nyam su lanju yore pes.
Nyam su lanju yore.
You can combine them because they serve the same function.
Thank you.
The descriptions of the Vijayadaras and their retinue look like the charnel ground practitioners of the charnel ground yogis and dakinis and so forth. So is this associated with Chud practice?
Directly. Dakpa Ritsin je latso kurtan je pa thanche da konsoke korla ne pe power dan kandroma de soke dotro la ne pe nadro pomo ke nabada yore se. Den sang dene data de Ritsin sharwe kapso ko ke latso shawa de chu nyam sa lempa porebe.
Che nyam sa lempa po se na ya ta jitang ke che se tu ngaran so damo sero ba je ke main ra damo sero ba je ke main ra la teni zo ta tup tup chenpo ten so de je to che ke na pe wi yo la ti junsin kare de se na ta je ma sa ni som na teni mo to pa dang ngin jung ji ke ta da bo je da teni yan to sa ni som na teni je ta zongin ke nam to dan jito la so pa pombe ke dan da bo je ke dan de la teni to che la pe yo la ta te je nyam ni nang kin re se na yong de ke je nyam ni nang ki mare se na ndege ware jesen ke te ta chitang dancing je pe ke tab ndabu je la te nange ware ba
That the core layer bucket
Ko la ye
Well, the Dakas and Dakinis that appear in the retinues of the pure Vidyadharas and the Bardo, you could think of them as practitioners of the essence of Chu or severance, but not necessarily of the specific technique that we call Chu. We use the term Chu to refer to a specific tradition, a set of instructions, a set of techniques. The use of charnel grounds by yogis and yoginis is more general than that. Mahasiddhas have resorted to charnel grounds from a beginner's point of view, we would say, in order to develop a heartfelt understanding of impermanence, and from an advanced point of view, in order to transcend thoughts of good and bad. So, in that the beings that appear surrounding the Vidyadharas are such as Mahasiddhas, who, as you said in your question, might inhabit charnel grounds, in essence, you can think of them as equivalent to Chö practitioners, but they're not necessarily going to be people who specifically practice that tradition.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
I had two questions, Rinpoche. One is a clarification. When the five consciousnesses dissolve into the sixth, it got a little fuzzy after that, so to speak. I wondered exactly, do five go into six, six into seven?
He
seven
didn't
into
say
eight?
5 into 6, he said 5 into the all basis.
So each goes into the all basis
Well, let's ask him.
And then, no, the connection to the red,
Yeah,
the white, the
okay,
red, and the
yeah.
black.
That the Timrim Dang, the Namshe Tsokche Tempa ke Drelso ke Kola, Dambo ke Timrim Rakpe Kaso, Gongai Namba Shepa, the Kunjila Tengi Orebe. Jesu de Kala Malam Natlam Kaso, Drokpa Dan Dumpa Dan Jepa de Kadu Tengi Ore.
단다 공은 넘버 히바다 이게 넘버 히바다 냠도
Nyamdo Tengi.
냠도 템게 요사래
Lasa?
라 데니 디 깔람동 말람니가 값을 녀이데 된
Lasa?
말람지 값을 데니 그 말이 비차된 거네 데니 예외서 혀
Then they another the Kalam Kapsa the Drukpa Yichinamshe Timsawarebe.
템사완도 인스래
It seems, Rinpoche said, that the 5 sense consciousnesses and the 6th consciousness, the mental consciousness, probably dissolve simultaneously into the all basis. And this would occur over the period of the coarse external dissolution. The 7th consciousness, the afflicted mental consciousness, dissolves into the all basis during the first 2, the white appearance and red increase of the inner dissolution, and then during the 3rd, black attainment, the all basis consciousness dissolves.
Thank you for that, Rinpoche. The final question was, what is the direct introduction to clear light?
That the tekar ngotu zamayimba ke shine tembo go song tekar ngotu kana sege ore.
테카르 모데 세나 다 지당가 다 센틱 나네 디가설라 센징오게 농동가 내당된데 지레 좀베 냠냠다고지 다 memang보라 제게 와라 디제와텔라 모데 세게 와라 모데 텔라 까까라 당보제 샤르 야파 예도지 반도 근데 마인바 당랑설 가리 고기 와르세나 테네테 템보지 가두이나야 예바제 테네 랑왕이 예반도 보지 코 샤르두 미샤 텔라 냠 다랑왕메 반도 보지라 테네 운이 강고 똑같텔라 가리 고르세나 나랑 감두샤 테네 마감두 미샤 나랑 감텔라 랑왕이 예반도 보지 고그라 데이터블라 테네 힌니게 땡자이 Tela penna, nyam naving tondati, yalni ro. Tene topa ro tondati, temborni sikinda tondati, gorganam tendi orva.
What's called a direct introduction to the mind or to the mind's nature refers to something that a teacher does when giving what's called guidance on the mind. And while giving guidance on the mind, they may actually tell you what the mind is really like, to tell you what the mind's nature is. And when receiving such a direct introduction to the mind, most people gain some kind of experience, some degree of experience of the mind's nature. The problem with this is that because they gained that experience under the power of the teacher's impressive instruction, the experience, first of all, gradually disappears as the time passes. And furthermore, they have no control over it because they did not give rise to the experience under their own power. So not only does the experience disappear, but because it was not gained through their meditation practice, they can't regain it even through meditation. This is not as useful to us as a kind of experience that is gained through your own meditation. What you want is where, whenever you meditate, you can experience your mind's nature. And when you don't meditate, you may not, but at least you can gain that experience at will through meditation. And in order to do this, you need to develop a stable tranquility and then gradually cultivate insight. Otherwise, you simply have had an impressive experience that has vanished. As was said in meditation songs, experience is like mist, it vanishes. Realization is like a mountain, it stays there.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, I was wondering if the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities are just within the human realm, or if all beings, all sentient beings, have the 100 peaceful, wrathful deities.
The Shitro Damparicha de Migi Lugi Nala Yorepe, Yana Simchin Samagi Lugi Nala Yorepes.
Then Tati Simchi
Sama.
Samala Yorella. Then Tanda taken on the Somaya, John Simbi, Yorison, stop at the Hargrism, then the song.
Not just humans, all beings. The commentaries say this will be experienced even by a bug that lived on a blade of grass.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Rinpoche, I think yesterday you talked about cognitive capacity, and that's always there, naked awareness, what have you, and that's Buddha nature. And so it seems to imply that there's always a knower, a perceiver and a knower, or a knower of some type. Doesn't that still imply there's a duality taking place?
Chedonso the semji ngowa de sariktsam yore sonso. Sariktsam de deshinyum pore sonso. Sariktsam de la rikpa yana rikpa poda rikpa yul dan yulche ni gogmandawe.
Ti salrik sinking the Yulda, Eugene Nige, Nambatan Tempesari, the body. Sal said Kanga, Harduruan, the hotel. Tapena, Naranzo, Semjin, Mo, the Chitang, Kanaya, Mepaje, Tomba, Tomba taking more the Candidacy, Tachia Meba, Tening a Tangarang to Junto, Penton Seki Orella. Tenitia Mepa, Penton Sena, Ronda Botende, Tomba Imbala, Tomba Ronda Imba, Revisina Mare, Teni Tomba Tela, the Cho Takanga Hakon King, the Vote, Yorella, Tintil, Salrik Seki Ore.
Mere cognitive lucidity does not presuppose or require a subject and object, because it is the capacity for cognition the capacity for experience. And that mere capacity in and of itself does not have or require an object, and therefore it is not a subject. The reason why this has to be mentioned at all is that when it is said that the mind's nature is an utter emptiness, that it is nothing at all, this, while true, can be misleading if you leave it at that. Because while it is true that the mind is so empty of existence that it is nothing at all, it is not just nothing at all. If you say something is nothing at all, it implies nothingness. It implies a corpse-like state of absence of experience. But the mind, while it is nothing at all, is not just nothing at all, because it can experience.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, the wrathful deities are many. Is there one that predominates that would relate to an individual because of their own consciousness? Is that clear?
You mean is a given individual going to have a greater connection with one of the 58 or 60?
Exactly. And also with the Tathagatas.
That the true latso tong shiva latso nika mombo dawa yore. True ngachu ngajam rupchu tong shiva shichu sheni yore. De gangsa mixel ge detso ge nan la hla mixel pen true ge nan ne chik tang shiva ge nan ne chik la mixel ge ledel dawa ham dene dela sova dap de gom na penyun chewa dawa yore bes.
Tela tajitang ke ngarazo dene wang yu kapsala dene sohing pengi yore tati jawa rik ngak nane rang susu ke rik kang imbadapo nguen zembe ke cheta tile nangi yore la dene de susu ke rik de chuji yin je rik dene ta doji rik rinpoche rik peme rik sita sosu yaba te kashi tinte yojire la ten ya rik te yo na ya misal ke chebar meba tamchi la tene solvata tamchi la tene nyamne che na ya ndege yojire.
There is the idea of Buddha family affiliation, which is to say that in an elaborate empowerment ceremony, you will at some point cast what is called a tooth stick onto a simplified representation of the mandala. And it is taught that where the tooth stick falls can indicate your affiliation with one among the 5 Buddha families, such as the Tathagata or Dharmadhatu family, the Vajra family, the Lotus family, the Jewel family, or the Action family. However, at the same time, this is not regarded as that big a deal. And generally speaking, one is encouraged to meditate on and supplicate all of them.
And so this is also true of the wrathful deities.
Yeah, because they're divided into the same 5 families.
The wrathful deities
Yeah.
are?
Buddha Dharma,
Buddha Heruka Laso.
Buddha Heruka, Rena Heruka, Beja Heruka. Tikipa,
Yeah. They're wrathful, but other than that, they're the same 5 family manifestations. You know, Buddha Heruka, Vajra Heruka, and so on.
Well, I was actually thinking of the deities that have different animal heads.
Dine chamen gonyen de tsoyina pena de shivele de dunda. They're all they all flow out from the five families. They're all like, there may be more than one of them at the outer perimeter, but they're still divided into the families.
I see. Thank you very much.
I'm a little confused about the 8th disillusion and the 9th when he talks about visualizing the light rays coming from the heart and then in the domes over the head.
He didn't say anything about visualizing.
Oh, he just said they come from.
You see them.
You see them, but is there a body? I mean, how are you all of a sudden in the heart?
Right. Okay. That the timrim jepa dang gopa ke khasa tene rangi nyenka na yoze trawa dang rangi ke togala tene that the gorpo pam dup popa trawa ke nawashawa de rang sena rangi lu khandra yore ichi lu rebe.
Tati kap tena ro rama imba. Tangarang susola. Tangaji yo sambatama yore.
Ilu
Ilu.
Well, at that point, you do have a mental body that is generated by the habit of thinking you exist. It's thinking I, me. And so therefore you assume that you have a body. And that's the source of the perspective. That assumed body. It's not the corpse.
Thank you.
Rinpoche, I was wondering, you said that there's the white constituent in the head from the father.
La. So, excuse me, Bonnie. Whoever's in line now, stay in line. Nobody else get in line. So, about the white constituent in the head.
Yes, and the red constituent in the navel from the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean that you have still a karmic connection via these materials from your parents, or is this generic from person to person?
That pale topake kacha da male topake macha de CD kasuyeno umage yane da manela negyoreso. De pale topa da male topa insan de ngone zede de pagi zeda mage ze ngone re dang de insan dela ledrel chemba yadam yana dedan chatumba sam rangilu jizerebe.
Tela chatumba sam injire. Ta jitang ngarat luchasante tela ten tubara savendra. Tela ten tubare de sawe ke savendra bote tombo ta tela tene je karchata marchani bote jota dewani la ne sarela tene inji minji kora daran imbi chabayo mare.
Well, they're not in the sense that these are not the original sperm and ovum themselves, because the sperm and ovum have, after all, developed into your entire body. So in that sense, you could think that your whole body, not just these two constituents, are an outgrowth of the original substances from your parents. These are like the kernels of those two aspects of your body, so that they correspond to but are not actually the original substances which were the conditions for conception.
And then one short question about karma. Is resuscitation during the process of death only possible for one dying as a result of sudden conditions, for instance, an accident? Or is it possible to revive someone also whose life force is running out?
That the traji chenji shiwa da ngunji leji shiwa niyo segyo. That samsam pena gadriki dapa yana kanyana dene halam shinang konsoke ya sugi ores. Ya su tupna de tenden traji chensam iyempa chagwi orepe yana kashe ke ngunji leji je de jonayang yasuya yosigrepe.
Ngi lela mambo ndirwa. Ngi lela ya nguni shigup lesa pata. Ya nguni dab gup lesa pata te soso indirwa. Dab gup lesa na te yakwa ya suya yorwa.
It's possible that the condition for that person dying could be karmic and they could be resuscitated. But in that case, the karma would include the karma of resuscitation.
Thank you, Rinpoche. This question may be premature. Again, it's Buddhologist may or may not be true stuff. When you die, I was told that you have to go to the bright light, not to the calm, gentle light. Is that the wrathful deities that you were supposed to wait for? And
Dere de morong ke singmo yang de la ge yores. Susu shibe kapse de rigni sha ge yores. Tserwa hacha je matopak tserwa chendang. Te tsam shuk chongwa ro. Nikala kado manro yores. Shuk chewa de injimiji dam go gudo de tarpe lamres. Shuk chongwa de rukdok ke lamres. Data de sumba ge mezopa da zotopa deni chowo ge ya da shiva ge ya re be kanda re.
Tela hiu el samora. Bardo tudru kabla.
Ola kaka re mo.
Hiwa inza lo. Bardo
Tens kaka re songo. Chikto de shiva ge la shawa ka su dunyam do yang rukdo ge sha ge re de tets kaka re do.
Ore. Tendiri.
Karejini shiva la so de to ka tena de da de shin ka. Ore.
Teni yima we nga tuje do kya.
Ola so.
Ore.
Well, the that's not wrong. The dim, comforting lights that lead to samsaric rebirth are not the lights of the peaceful deities themselves. Those are also bright, but they appear at the same time. And there is the danger, because they're comforting and familiar and not threatening like the bright lights of the deities, that one might choose them and therefore be reborn in samsara.
the wrathful ones.
No, it's not like that. Forget about peaceful and wrathful for the moment. These deities emit light of wisdom, the lights of the five wisdoms, and it's brighter it's more irritating in the case of the wrathful ones, but in either case it's bright and could potentially be frightening because of its brilliance. The light of the six, that is the gateways to the six realms, is muted and familiar. So it's not that the peaceful deity's light is familiar and non-threatening. It's less threatening than the wrathful deity's light, but they're both wisdom light. They're not. They mena morang desam gyores chowa latsok ki ola tene tarpa tang shiwe latsok ola tene korwa iloma de marwa. No, it's not the case that being attracted to the light of the peaceful deities is cause of samsara. It's being attracted to the muted light of the six realms. But what Rinpoche said was it does appear at the same time. In other words, it's almost like there's a choice that has to be made.
With the peaceful and the wrathful.
Dine shive latso nyamde rikdoki öde tso shagyore. Chuwa latso nyamde yang rikdoki öde tso shagyore be. Makes sense. They don't particularly say that. They talk about the light of the six realms appearing at the culmination of the appearance of the peaceful deities, who originally appear in their individual groups and then appear all together. And at that time, at the same time, the light of the samsaric realms starts to appear too.
Rinpoche, when we do Vajrasattva as part of our Nundro, is there any particular way we could use the 100-syllable mantra to the benefit of the deities in our body?
That dorsemge ngonro dorsemge yikja dambe kapsu dene yikja ge depala tene range lupo namna yapa ge shito dambarikja pembe tap yorepes pembe tap sena konso pengo mno konso ngatso pengo. Do you mean to help them, or to help them help us? Either one.
Whatever I can get.
Tena consola pempo yana dona di inside that the yigja depala tene damparikja ke latso Dantes Jalvazoya Amsova Daba Dogitsu Yor.
Here Salpo Mus in Jalvandapote, Hunkakret, Inaya, Tig, Delvala Tin Be, Pempachimbo, Tinitela, Naranso, Tachitang, Doji Sempegomdete, Dig Dip Jama Sigrella. Dig Dip Jama Situ, Dig Pasena, Tatia, Senda Tatia Namal, Ling and Basoiga Patinsopa, Chaya Jada, Dripasena, Tini, Chitang, Niemomba Drabat, Hiji Drabani, Penani, Niemomba, the Shahedo Timula Sopa, Chumdun Royata, Tini Hiji Drabasena, Namto Rapa, Henzi, Hemba Chimboya Patinsoma, Chumdun Roya Impicena, the Tenzoya, Zangma Yapojirena, Tini Dig Tanda Hitulazo Tenzoya, Nubanda Cher Dogroya.
There's certainly a connection between the 100-syllable mantra and the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. At the same time, it's unlikely that repetition of the 100-syllable mantra is going to cause you to directly see them. But the practice of Vajrasattva, including the repetition of the mantra, is designed to purify two things, wrongdoing and obscurations. Wrongdoing refers to things we have done in this life and also in all previous lives. Obscurations refers to two types of obscuration. The afflictive obscuration, which is the mental afflictions, attachment, aversion, bewilderment, pride, and jealousy. And the cognitive obscuration, which is the fixation on the self and so forth. Now, these two are gradually purified along with the imprints of wrongdoing by the repetition of this mantra in conjunction with the visualization. As these things are purified, as therefore your kleshas and your fixation start to be reduced, then you could think of this as augmenting the power of the peaceful and wrathful deities to benefit you.
Thank
you. Rinpoche, I'm a little confused about the 8th and 9th stages of dissolution. They sound like some kind of accomplishment, and I'm wondering, does ordinary person, so falling into the unconsciousness, say one does not recognize the clear light, first of all, just to clarify, one does anyway then experience the peaceful and wrathful deities and then goes on to these 8th and 9th stages? And then also, if you could just repeat or reclarify the 9th, I didn't quite get that one.
That the Chigi Usaji Bardo Kapsu the Timpa Sumde the Pena that the Gangza Palpage won't zeparepe Pena the Shi Usa the Ngoma Tru Dene Jalwata the Yongaris Jalwa the Songsa the Yang Trovota Shive lots of Tawadang de Jessian Rangi Ninkane User Tawadang Dene Yala Duk Popa it's okay Kansa Tamapa Tongarepe Yana Shi Usa the Ngozung Tsawa Kansa Kona La Shagiore
Nikala Shagri
Nikala Shagri
Tatig Musena Ya Tig Ya Tanda Jebata Sunju Yehi Latambata Yehi Rinzin Rinzin Latamba Nipoti Ya Saltundro Tendro Tingu Mazin Naya Sarapsachani Tipayar.
These things will be experienced by both an individual who fails to recognize and an individual who succeeds in recognizing the ground clear light. The difference is that as the individual emerges from, in the case of the first person, a state of unconsciousness, in the case of the second person, a state of samadhi, these appearances, which are here called dissolutions, will definitely occur, but they will last longer, be more vivid, and be more stable for the person who has recognized the ground clear light than they will be for the person who has not done so.
Thank you. And with the 9th...
Oh, right, you want it, yeah. Dine tempa gupate, yeshe londrup rigzin la tempa de nama kandra yore. Selpo go masonsi. Duk pupanage. Basically, the 9th dissolution is an experience of what are called parasols of light. of these 4 colors above you.
And the mention of the Vidyadharas?
De la Lundup Rigzin Jiming Basically, the names of these dissolutions describe a progressive, increasing clarity or intensity of experience. And that's why the last one is called that.
Okay, thank you.
Tene tanda ngarang ke khya jela tene cherto ngarang ke mama ke kapsula tene chitang ke kharshola tene je gamba ta ani gamba ta tende mandawa ta tambi chuge te tine la pembe setala khare jachim bosikan yungri yo marete ina yang ngarang ke kantu to ta ngarang tambi chu penkin ji sondu tambi chu je kangala pembe ke chetu tinde legam kashi chebarela teni tikapsala ngarang ke samdu te la je nushu gangala kaya jemaso kaya ta nushu gangala nushu ga loma tenzo la pembe ke chetu la ngarang ke teni chu ke tilenda kaya jemaso la tini te tsani yabu mandu kariri se na je se na sharchu ta nuchu ni se du chu la ngune ge moba ta nyamni yapa te je ngarang kan tongso la ai ta je se na nuchu ba ga ge men ro song sang ba no sha ge la te pe chu la te pa ta mu gu ngune ge nyamni nangki 단다이나 야 대다르도 강가게 냠내나 전주 문에게 되는데 지당 몽디 정말인바 되는 문에게 준신 힙을 거네 담비 추주고라 효 담비 추주고라 효네 다라나 소수게 난상게 랭긴다 소수게 랭긴 망보 요래데 있나야 데 갈춘춘시 담비 추두지데 갈침보시네 냠네 남지데 베 펜도 침보래라데 디게 제 로마초라 냠네 남산다 보제다 되니 근데 이제 요나 베 펜도 침보 대 마이나 땅가랑 rep사 제용 제 야친도 가보 가히지 되니 나랑 팔로도 로마초라 제 고고당가 반다 보제 린도멘로 대 티처나 제 दुखां चे जाप थोपना पे कालचे बुद्धो सामने तनी दुखां चे एयों के रेवा चे पर अल्लाह तनी दुखां ते एयों के रेवा चे दु अल्लाह या ता सो ने पे रोरम मांबु नंग वारे ला तनी चे तंबो सचारे tene tegendola tene kangba jebji gere leka ga goni re kasa kane roram mangbo nang yore la tene lomatsu ga nang yore tene tegendola tanda ngaranso tastik member 쪽에 로람 자침보 나요래 되니 진도 쪽에 로람 자침보 나요래 로마치당 로마 쪽에 로람 자침보 나요래 땅 알아서 대지야야 소소토바지 정요래 디나니 미살도 되니 클라다 패트니 베칼레만 보잡니 칼레만 보잡니 레카만 보제요래 강가라 두지 제효고 반다고 되는데 정요래 라 정요래 되니 대강가 베카딘 쳔보 정요래 펜도 쳔보 정요래 되니 대세도 될라 단다야 땅 알아서야 제 단대 송생킨데 내가 정요 말해라 되니 대세도 될라 강가게 단동야 들이 단다 비디오지 땡거 오사래라 되니 비디오 때 템백업라 디자인이 되니 카르세 툭툭 되니 로마초게 대하야 나요래라 단동요 가시 툭툭 되니 나랑게 생규 야위요래 되니 로마초게 다디 단 나란서 제 나란서 베게 담벨라 샤라툰디 라 샤라툰디 샤라시나 되니 다 타노 잘라지 되나 오래 데 레쳔보지 따이나 오래 다디야 저거나 오래 되니 수연 강가디야 저거를 마도 소제네 맞아나 되니 만톨 현도 그래 오래 된다고 강가 소 강가네 대 강가 강타도 지도 나로 로람 나로제
before we part for this morning, there is one thing that I would like to talk about briefly. Up to now, while I don't regard my accomplishments in this area as anything tremendous, I have been able to create several monasteries in Asia, both those for male monastics and those for female monastics. And in that way, while again I don't think it's anything tremendous, I feel that I have done something for practitioners in Asian countries. But when I think about what I've accomplished in the West, I've often felt that I hadn't really accomplished anything at all, that I hadn't really accomplished anything serious for the benefit of Western practitioners. And from time to time I felt some dissatisfaction and concern about this, because it seems to me when I look at it that nowadays Westerners are even more interested in Dharma practice than people in Asia. For one thing, you all come to the practice of Dharma by choice. And having done so, you're very diligent in your practice and in your investigation and study. The basis for your practice is your understanding, your recognition of Dharma's validity. It is not merely naive faith. Furthermore, although you're all extremely busy and have great responsibilities, you still manage to practice. So because all of this is true, I've wished again and again that there could be a place for people to practice in this country. If I can't do that, if I can't create such a thing, I've felt, then my coming to these places and talking big, giving elaborate teachings which by implication make great promises, and then disappearing again, is nothing more than deception, because I am not giving you the necessary resources to follow through in practice. For this reason, I had hoped for a long time to be able to create a retreat facility, a place where people could practice. Now, many of you, and many other people as well, have helped tremendously in the creation of this retreat thus far. Initially in the acquisition of the land, subsequently in the building of the retreat so far. People have worked very, very hard. They've made financial contributions, contributions of skills of all kinds, as well as their time. I want to thank all of you, the many disciples, the members of the board of the trust, and so on, and especially Pat and Clark, who've worked so hard for so long to bring this project to its fruition. I really owe all of you my most sincere thanks. But I also have to say that the project is not completed. We're not done yet. So therefore, I encourage you to watch the video that is going to be shown to you later on. And I ask all of you to please continue to provide the support in many ways that you have provided up to now. We have a saying about this in Tibetan, and I honestly can't think of a word for this thing, but it means a cloth that you're going to hold stuff on. If you lift a cloth that you're going to hold stuff on, it has to be lifted from all four corners. If one corner drops, then the stuff that you're trying to lift up is going to roll out. So in the same way, we all have to work together in order for this project to continue to grow and finally be completed. Thank you.
Tene tatela ngaranga rewasena yare chenamba kanga rewasena yare chu nyomlin sepa je tanda ta chitang yonggu yore la tene teya ta chitang chu nyomlin sepa teya chitang ngaran so mrabge nyomlin se gu yore la ngaran so cham maimba tene mrab jema ge nyomlin se gu yore tene te se du tela te manyang ba je be 갈치기 와래라 드니 대세도 드네 대 주게 대완다고 쳐야 돼배 갈치 와래라 드니 단다 나랑 그 인터뷰 시작할까 memang부가 당아 부그디 넘바야 보때 레야 그 쳐도 가르쳐 그러지 드니 제도 드니 대강가라 머랍 제말라 레와체 뭐 요래라 the Rewa Chimbo Yodi Telang Rang Rewala, the Jankama Pakunti Jurupa, Sashantana Pe, Jama Na, Toi Hijimo, Jetin Rinpoche, Ana Yo, Tende Sedu, Danala, Dukanji on the Pe, Shana Chimbo, and Pento Chimbo, Unsare, Zombege, the Rewa Yorela, the Sedu, the Kangage, that's Kasusuga Kantutu, that's it, Robandavo, Kantota, Jamju Naru Chihui.
My hope, and your hope as well, is that you all be able to practice Dharma. And especially, not only do we need to be able to practice in the present generation, but we also have to create a situation that will ensure that future generations be able to practice as well. For this to occur, we need a foundation, a center, a place where this practice and tradition of practice can be continued. In many interviews, people say to me, how can I ensure that my children receive a proper exposure to and education of Buddhism? In that way, it's evident that we're all quite concerned with future generations. And therefore, I think it's important that we fulfill the vision of His Holiness the 16th Gelung Karmapa, who came here and not only commended the creation of a stupa, but also eventually the building of a retreat center. So, I ask all of you to help to whatever degree and in whatever way you can. So